Most people think they are building a business, but in reality, they've just created another job for themselves, a job. They can never escape a job that follows them everywhere, a job that slowly takes control of their time, their mind, and their entire life. The truth is, freedom does not belong to those who work the hardest. It belongs to those who build systems that work without them. And long before modern business even existed, a man named Plato tried to warn us about this, but most people never understood him. Because like prisoners trapped inside a cave, they mistake activity for progress and chains for security from a very young age. You were taught a simple idea: work hard, stay consistent, build something of your own, and eventually you will be free. So you followed that path. You studied, you worked, you sacrificed, and maybe at some point you decided to start a business because you didn't want a job. You wanted freedom, control, independence. And for a moment it felt like you made it. No boss, no fixed hours, no limits. But slowly something strange started happening. You weren't working less, you were working more. You weren't feeling free, you were feeling trapped, because the business you built started depending on you. Every decision, every customer, every problem, every responsibility came back to you. And if you stopped, everything stopped. That's when the illusion begins. Plato once described a group of prisoners chained inside a cave. They had been there their entire lives. All they could see were shadows on a wall, shadows of people, objects, movement, and because they had never seen the real world, they believed those shadows were reality. Now imagine this: one prisoner breaks free. He steps outside the cave and sees the real world, light, depth, truth. When he comes back to tell the others, they don't believe him, they laugh, they reject him, because the illusion feels more comfortable than the truth. And this is exactly what's happening today. The modern businessman is still inside the cave. He believes he is free because he left his job, but in reality, he just replaced one system with another. Before he worked for a company, now he works for his business. Before he had one boss, now he has customers, employees, problems, deadlines, all controlling him at once. And the most dangerous part, he calls it freedom. This is the illusion, because true freedom does not depend on your constant presence. If your business needs you every single day, you don't own a business, the business owns you. There are two types of people in this world: businessmen and entrepreneurs. At first glance, they look the same. Both run businesses, both make money, both take risks, but internally they are playing completely different games. The businessman builds something that depends on effort. The entrepreneur builds something that removes effort. The businessman asks, how can I earn more? The entrepreneur asks, how can this run without me? The businessman works harder. The entrepreneur thinks deeper. And over time, that difference becomes everything. Imagine a man who opens a small shop. At first, he is excited. He controls everything. Sales grow, customers come, money starts flowing. But as time passes, the business grows bigger, more customers, more responsibility, more pressure. He hires employees, but they depend on him. He takes a day off, sales drop. He gets sick, operations slow down. He tries to expand, but realizes everything still connects back to him. Years pass, and one day he realizes something painful. He didn't build freedom, he built a cage made of responsibility. Now imagine another person. He also starts small, but he thinks differently. Instead of asking, how can I do more, he asks, how can this work without me? He builds systems, processes, automation. He documents everything. He hires carefully. He removes himself slowly. At first, it feels slower, less exciting, more difficult. But over time, something powerful begins to happen. The business starts running without him. Decisions are made without him. Money flows without him. And for the first time, he experiences something most people never do: true freedom, because he didn't just build a business, he built a system. And systems change everything. Systems don't get tired. Systems don't get emotional. Systems don't need constant attention. They operate independently. And that is the real difference between being busy and being free. Most people are stuck because they confuse movement with progress. They believe that working more will eventually solve everything. But more effort in the wrong system only creates more exhaustion. The real shift happens when you stop asking, how can I do more, and start asking, what can I build that works without me? Because the goal was never to work forever. The goal was to become free. But even after understanding this difference, most people still remain stuck. And the reason is simple: they are playing the second illusion, the illusion of saving instead of scaling. From childhood, You were taught that saving money is the key to becoming rich. Spend less than you earn, save consistently, avoid risk, and over time you will be secure. And while this sounds responsible, it was never designed to create freedom, it was designed to create stability. And there is a massive difference between the two, because stability keeps you safe. But it does not make you powerful. While your money sits in a bank account, the world keeps moving. Prices rise, opportunities disappear, and slowly, without realizing it, you are losing ground. And this is where entrepreneurs begin to play a completely different game. They don't focus on saving, they focus on leverage. Leverage is one of the most misunderstood ideas in the world. Most people think leverage means debt, loans, credit cards, but that is not the type of leverage that creates wealth. Real leverage is the ability to create results beyond your personal effort. It is the ability to multiply outcomes without multiplying time. It allows one person to achieve what would normally take hundreds of people years to accomplish. And the wealthy use it constantly. They use technology, they use media, they use systems, they use people. And they combine all of these into one powerful machine. Think about it. One video can reach millions. One product can be sold thousands of times. One system can run for years without interruption. The effort happens once, but the reward continues. And that is the moment everything changes, because now your time is no longer directly connected to your income. This is the point where businessmen struggle, because they are still thinking in a linear model. Work 1 hour, earn 1 hour, work 10 hours, earn 10 hours. But entrepreneurs break this model. They create something once and allow it to scale infinitely. They build something that continues to produce value even when they are not present. And that is why they move faster, not because they are smarter, not because they are luckier, but because they are not relying only on effort, they are relying on systems and leverage. And this is where fear enters the picture, because leverage equals uncertainty. It requires responsibility. It requires stepping into the unknown, and most people avoid this. They choose safety, they choose predictability, they choose comfort. But comfort has a hidden cost, because while you are protecting yourself from risk, you are also limiting your growth. And over time, that gap becomes massive. One person continues trading time for money, while the other builds assets that produce money without time. One stays busy, the other becomes free. And the difference is not talent, the difference is mindset, because one person asks, how can I save more, while the other asks, how can I multiply this? And that single question changes everything. Because when you start thinking in terms of multiplication instead of preservation, your entire approach to money changes. You stop seeing money as something to protect and start seeing it as something to deploy, something to use, something to grow. And that is when real progress begins, because now you are no longer just working, you are building something that works for you. And once you understand leverage, the final illusion becomes even more dangerous, because it challenges something most people never question. And that is the belief that the system is fair. From the moment you were born, you were taught to believe in fairness. Work hard, follow the rules, stay honest, and eventually success will come. But what if that belief is incomplete? What if success is not determined only by effort, but by positioning? What if the game was never designed to be fair, but to reward those who understand how it actually works? This is where most people become uncomfortable, because it forces them to confront a reality they have been avoiding for years. The world does not always reward effort equally. It rewards those who place themselves in the right position at the right time with the right strategy. Imagine two people working equally hard. One is isolated with no network, no access, no exposure. The other is surrounded by opportunity, mentors, investors, systems, information. Who do you think moves faster? The answer is obvious. And that is because environment is leverage, network is leverage, access is leverage, information is leverage. And the people who understand this stop asking, how can I work harder, and start asking, how can I position myself better? Because positioning compresses time. It turns years into months. It turns effort into results. And it changes everything. The wealthy do not wait for opportunities. They move toward them. They place themselves where growth is inevitable. They understand that success leaves clues, and they follow those clues intentionally. If technology is growing, they move toward technology. If media is growing, they move toward media. If finance is growing, they move toward finance. They don't stay stuck in environments that limit them, they change environments. And that single decision can redefine an entire life. Because the wrong environment can trap you for decades, while the right one can accelerate everything. And this is where the final transformation begins, because now you are no longer just working, you are thinking strategically, you are building systems, you are using leverage, and you are positioning yourself correctly. But there is one more step, and this is the step that separates those who understand from those who actually succeed, and that is execution, because knowledge without action changes nothing, and this is where most people fail. They watch, they learn, they understand, but they never move. They stay in the same place, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for certainty, waiting for clarity. But clarity comes from action, not from thinking, and the people who succeed are the ones who start before they feel ready. They build quietly, they work in silence, they create in the background. While everyone else is distracted, they live a double life. One visible, one invisible. The visible life is what everyone sees: your job, your routine, your responsibilities. But the invisible life is where your future is built, the skills you are learning, the systems you are creating, the assets you are developing, the opportunities you are preparing. And slowly over time, that invisible life begins to produce results: a small income, a new opportunity, a growing system. And eventually something shifts. Your dependence on effort begins to break. And for the first time you gain options, real options, the ability to choose how you spend your time, the ability to walk away, the ability to say no. And that is what wealth truly is: not luxury, not status, not attention, but freedom, the freedom to control your own life. And that is the difference between a businessman and an entrepreneur. One stays trapped in effort, the other escapes through systems. One chases income, the other builds assets. One works harder, the other thinks deeper. And the choice has always been there. Most people simply never see it. But now you do so. The question is no longer can you work harder. The question is, will you continue living in the illusion? Or will you step out of the cave and finally see the truth? Because most people will hear this and ignore it. They will go back to their routines, their comfort, their père iveyeruchen oste. But a few will stop, a few will think, a few will act, and those few are the ones who change everything. Decide which one you are. And if you are ready to stop living in illusion and start building real freedom, then stay here, because this is only the beginning. At this stage, most people believe they understand the difference between effort and systems. But understanding is not transformation, because the mind still clings to old patterns, the same patterns that kept you trapped for years. And that is why even after hearing the truth, people go back to the same life, the same routine, the same cycle, because breaking out of the cave is not just about seeing the light, it is about unlearning everything that once felt normal. And this is where the real battle begins, not outside, but inside your own mind, because your identity is built around what you have been doing for years. If you have spent your life working hard, then your brain will resist anything that feels like stepping away from that effort. It will tell you that you are being lazy, that you are taking shortcuts, that you are doing something wrong. And that internal resistance is what pulls most people back into the system. They try to escape, so the question becomes, how do you break that pattern? How do you move from being the person who works inside the system to the person who builds the system? The answer is simple, but not easy. You start by changing what you value, because most people value effort. They feel proud when they are busy. They feel important when they are exhausted. They measure progress by how much they have done. But entrepreneurs measure progress differently. They measure outcomes, not effort. They measure systems, not activity. They measure freedom, not busyness. And that shift changes everything. Because now, instead of asking how many hours did I work, you start asking what did I build that will continue working without me? And that question forces you to think differently. It forces you to step back. It forces you to stop reacting and start designing your life intentionally. Because systems are not built by accident, they are built through clarity, through repetition, through patience. And this is where most people quit, because system building is not exciting in the beginning. It is slow, it is repetitive, it is invisible. There is no immediate reward, no instant validation, no applause. And in a world addicted to quick results, that feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is the price of freedom. Because every system you build is a piece of your future. Every process you create is a step away from dependence. Every asset you develop is a step toward control, and slowly, without even realizing it, your life begins to change. You are no longer reacting to problems, you are preventing them. You are no longer chasing money, you are creating flows of money. You are no longer stuck in the present, you are building for the future, and that is when the shift becomes permanent, because now you are not just thinking like an entrepreneur, you are becoming one. But even after building systems, there is another level that separates those who achieve temporary success from those who create lasting power. And that level is control, because building something is one thing, controlling it is another. And this is where the game becomes more strategic, more calculated, and more powerful, because the highest level players do not just build businesses, they build ecosystems. They do not just create products, they control distribution. They do not just participate in markets, they shape markets. And this is what most people never see, because they are too focused on the surface. They see a product, they see a brand, they see success. But they do not see the structure behind it, the networks, the systems, the positioning, the layers of control that make everything work together seamlessly. And this is where the concept of ownership becomes even deeper, because true ownership is not just about having something, it is about having influence over how things operate. It is about being in a position where value flows toward you naturally, without force, without constant effort. And that level of control is built over time through decisions, through strategy, through positioning. Because every decision you make either moves you closer to control or further away from it. Every time you choose convenience over strategy, you delay your progress. Every time you avoid responsibility, you limit your potential. Every time you stay in a comfortable environment, you reduce your growth. And this is why the path to becoming an entrepreneur is not just about learning skills. It is about changing your entire way of thinking. It is about seeing the world differently, understanding patterns, recognizing opportunities before others do, and acting when others hesitate, because hesitation is the silent killer of progress. Most people wait, they wait for the perfect time, they wait for more knowledge, they wait for certainty, but certainty never comes. And while they are waiting, someone else is building, someone else is taking action, someone else is moving forward, and over time, that gap becomes impossible to ignore. Because success compounds, just like failure. The longer you delay, the harder it becomes to catch up. And this is why speed matters, not reckless speed, but strategic speed. The ability to make decisions quickly, to learn quickly, to adapt quickly, because the world is constantly changing, and those who move slowly get left behind, while those who move with intention and clarity create momentum. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces in the world, because once it starts, it becomes easier to continue, easier to grow, easier to expand. And that is when everything accelerates, opportunities appear, connections form, ideas turn into reality. And what once felt impossible becomes normal. And that is the moment you realize you are no longer playing the same game as everyone else. You have stepped outside the system, and now you are building your own. And this is where everything comes together, the realization that the difference between a businessman and an entrepreneur was never about money. It was about control. It was about freedom. It was about the ability to design your life instead of reacting to it. Because at the end of the day, money is just a tool. It is not the goal. The goal is freedom, the ability to choose how you spend your time, who you spend it with, what you build, what you create, what you walk away from. And most people never reach that point because they stay trapped in the illusion. They believe that more effort will eventually lead to freedom. But effort alone only strengthens the system you are already inside. And that is why breaking out requires a different approach, a different mindset, a different strategy. It requires you to question everything you have been taught, to challenge every assumption, to step outside your comfort zone and face uncertainty, because uncertainty is where growth happens. It is where transformation begins. It is where you stop being controlled and start taking control. And that is not an easy path. It requires discipline, patience, resilience. It requires you to keep going when results are not visible, to stay consistent when motivation fades, to believe in the process when nothing seems to be working. But that is the price of becoming someone different, someone who is not defined by limitations, someone who is not controlled by circumstances, someone who creates instead of consumes, someone who builds instead of follows. And over time, that identity becomes your reality. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to escape. You see yourself as someone who is already building something greater, something independent, something powerful. And that is when the final shift happens, the moment you stop chasing freedom and start living it, because freedom is not something you find at the end of the journey. It is something you build along the way through every decision, every action, every system, every risk, every step forward. And now the choice is yours. You can go back to the life you know, the routine, the comfort, the illusion, or you can move forward into uncertainty, into growth, into control. Because most people will choose comfort. They will stay where they are. They will ignore this message and continue living the same life. But a few will decide differently. A few will take action. A few will step out of the cave. And once you see the truth, you can never unsee it. So the question is simple. Will you remain a businessman trapped inside a system, or will you become an entrepreneur who builds one?